All right, the wait is over. I got my Wayne Gretzky Rookie card back from Forensic Card Grading. It kind of is an interesting story around that, but we'll get into that in just a minute. It went to a few places it shouldn't have, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's flip this bad boy over, take it out of its box, packaging, see what we got. So, first of all, just looking at the back, I like how they have it's got a case like any other. It's got the logo, which is nice. And let's flip it over and see what we got. We are a 3.5. Hoping it was a 4, but thought it would be come back as a 3, so a 3.5 is right about the right. Now what I like about these guys, they call it a very good 3.5. And they tell you how they graded it. So centering is 8.5. Excellent centering. Edges, 7.5. So the edges are on the corners. The corners were only a 3. And I know that because I dinged that corner and that corner when I was putting it in a card loader, a better card loader at one time. So I knew I damaged that a bit. The surface was a 5.5. Obviously, when I dinged this corner, I put a little crease in there. So I damaged this card myself. It would have been a lot better had I just left the damn thing alone in its original plastic sleeve. So not happy with that, but that's my own fault. So I was kind of confused when I saw this at first. Like, you add up all the numbers and divide it by 4, it comes out to a 6. But it was explained to me that when they grade cards and they take your worst number and then add 1, depending on what everything else is. So they could only add 1 to my card, so it became from a 3. Well, they put 3.5. It should be a 4 probably. I think if it's PSA, it's a 4. So if this was a PSA card, it'd come back as probably a 4 or 4.5. Forensic Card Grading gave it a 3.5, so I'm happy. You know, I thought it was going to be a 3 at the worst, and that's what it did. Now the funny story is, when I first went to get my card back from a fan of the sport, Marty, the guy at the store, Marty, gave me my card, and it was only a 2. And I was kind of bummed about it. Didn't really look at the card too much. You know, I was kind of disappointed. But then when I got it back to my car, I looked at it again and I said, wait a minute, this doesn't look like my card. There were some creases down here, which I never noticed before. And the edge didn't look right. So I went home and looked at my video. And noticed right away that my card, this is my card now, but the card I got was inverted, the edges. So this length here was over here and this one was over here. And then there was those creases there, which I never had before. So I immediately called up Marty, fan of sport, and said, I'm coming back. I don't think that's my card. And sure enough, we looked at the video. He agreed. The edges were wrong. He went on his computer. He looked at the consignment. And what's cool about FCG is every time they get a card, they take a picture. So they took a picture of my card and compare, and me and Marty were able to compare it and realize, hey, that's not mine. And the guy who got my card turned around and sold this card. He flipped it. A guy named Robert Allen from the London area. Must have known that it wasn't his card, but he still sold it right away. Instead of doing the right thing and bringing it back. What happened if I was a 10-year-old kid and this happened to? This asshole, because you can tell right away it's not the same card. It was only a 2. It had bad creasing. The edges and corners weren't that great. The centering was probably the best thing about it. And so anyway, he went and sold it to some guy right away before anyone could squeal. So Robert Allen, he's in the London region. He's known as a flipper, and he's not the nicest guy in the world, like on a personal basis with other card shops. So what an asshole there. So right away, Marty gets on the horn to the local representative for FCG in this area, because it's a Texas-based company, but he has the contact to their sales representative up here in Canada. That guy gets on the horn right away, comes down to the store like a couple hours later from wherever he lives, and he came back with $1,500 just to put in a safe right now. So $1,500 plus the 2 grade card in a safe at Fan of the Sport. So the fact that they acknowledge there's a mistake, because he looked at all the photos and the video and he agreed it's not my card. So they came down. He came down with $1,500. Told Marty to put in a safe with the other card, and then they went and tracked out what happened. Here's what happened. When FCG gets a card, they do it one at a time when they grade cards, and they have special boxes for each card. That's how they do it normally. But when they get a Gretzky card or somebody high-end, they have to send it to someone who can authenticate it. So they're authenticator, and they happen to get 3 Gretzky cards all at the same time in the same consignment. So that guy, that authenticator, took all 3 Gretzky cards, authenticated them, but then he mixed up 2 of the boxes. So my card and this Robert Allen's card got mixed up. That's where the problem lies. Now, knowing that, going forward, the authenticator can only take 1 card at a time. Can't take multiple cards back if they're the same card. So they tightened up. They admitted their mistake. They came clean. They fixed the problem. That's good. So that's okay. So now this guy Doug, he texted me with some options of what they can do. So he's the head of FCG Canada, and they're working on fixing their error, and working with the guy that bought your actual card. The mix-up should never have happened, but this sale should never either. The guy clearly knew he had the wrong card. Now we have a couple of options, and I want to get you involved. The guy that has the card isn't cooperating. He wants much more than the card is worth to send it back. That's an option though. So that's option 1. Option 2 is I give you cash. Like pure up straight cash. So I looked on eBay, and a PSA 4 goes for about anywhere from $2,200 to $2,900 depending where you buy it from. And there's no guarantee that it'll be the same quality as mine. Or option 3 is FCG. You can keep the FCG2 at the store and cash, so the $1,500 and the FCG2. Or they'll buy me a better one graded by BGS or PSA or CGC. Obviously, we haven't graded many at FCG. Mark, the owner of FCG, is more than willing to talk with you as well. We want to make this right, and just being held ransom by this guy is crappy, so I wanted to see your thoughts on it. So option 1, I said, okay, trying to buy it back from this guy at an overprice doesn't seem worth it. No big deal. Option 2 would be easier, but then I would have to have sold the 2 and use the $1,500 to try and get a better grade card, because I don't want the 2. In the back of my head, it'd be like, that's not my card, right? It would drive me nuts knowing that wasn't my card. Now, to try and buy a car on eBay, you got to go through all the hoops and checks and everything to make sure you're getting something close. Option 3 means that I have to buy a Gretzky card to complete the set. So if they just gave me cash, I'd still have to go out and buy one to complete the set. Option 4 sounds better, as you could sell the 2 and make up some of the cost. You guys would have an easier time selling than I would. So they could keep their 2, sell it, use the cash from that to buy me a PSA 4. So that's what we were looking at first, was this for them to buy me a new Gretzky card. I also said you should ban the guy who got my card and didn't return. Because I could understand if it was almost identical, like it was harder to spot, but this was so obvious. A 2 grade to a 3.5 grade, there's a big difference. And this card that was a 2 had some very serious dings in it. Creases. But eventually what happened is the guy who bought my card, he decided to play ball. He realized that FCG wasn't going to buy at the price he was asking, so he did the right thing, and he sold it back for the amount he paid. So that guy came back. The guy who bought the card from Robert Allen decided to sell it back to FCG for the price that he paid. understanding there was a mistake. So he shipped it back at FCG's cost. And Doug came down to Fan of the Sport personally, and I met him at Fan of the Sport, and we talked for like half an hour. I got my card back, which is the one you see here. And they also gave me my one free grading. So I just sent a Jean Beliveau rookie card from 1953 Parkhurst set to get graded. I know it's not going to be great, but it's free, and I just want to get that card graded. So this thing went around to a few places. But I'm still giving FCG great marks because A, you know, for $35, it was pretty cheap to get this graded. Number two is it doesn't take long. It took 3 to 4 weeks. It was actually held up at the border, the U.S. border, for 5 days. So I should have got it back a week sooner than I did with all the other cards. And when they made the mistake, they immediately corrected it. They came out with some ideas, some solutions, and eventually everything worked out. So it only took an extra couple of weeks. So from 2 weeks from the time I spotted the mistake, they went above and beyond to correct it. Some places would just say, "Well, the insurance slip." We'd look at an insurance slip. Well, I only claimed $500 for this. But they have a reputation to keep, and they did what they can. And I very much appreciate Doug and Mark for helping me out. I would have liked to have taken a tour of FCG, but that's down in Fort Worth, Texas, so that ain't going to help. And I like their grading system. I like how they put how they graded it, so you know, unlike PSA and KSA, where you don't see shit. And it could happen to anybody. It could happen anywhere, and it just happened to me. And I'm glad I took a video, and I'm glad they take pictures. But I'm so glad that they work out. They're pretty transparent. I would definitely still recommend forensic card grading. And if you're sending cards to get graded, regardless of who you're sending it to, make sure you take a damn picture of your card so that you know what it looks like. Take a video too, front and back, because any little thing can help determine if that's your card or not. And you have the proof, and they'll have the proof. So anyway, that's the adventure of my Gretzky card that got graded. I'm so glad. I only paid $100 for this back in 2008, probably. I can't even remember when I got it. Yeah, I see that crease now where I really dinged that corner trying to get into a card thing. I know I did that. Damn. That affected the surface and the corners. So I paid $100 for this with 100 cards from that set. Now I have the complete set of 7980 O-PEE-CHEE. I'm completely happy with the process. I was pretty good sport about this. Anybody else who's had problems getting a card graded or in another adventure story like that, like a horror story. This is a horror story that turned out into a feel good because I got my card back. And if it had been me, if I had gotten a card that was like a 5 or 6, I would have returned it. If I noticed that it wasn't my card, I would have returned it right away. Or worked above and beyond to get it back. Helped out. Not being an asshole like this guy. Because you can tell if it's not your card. You should be looking at your cards and making sure. Because you don't want to screw someone else over. So that guy from London's a greedy prick. But anyway, leave comments in the comment section. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and when my Beliveau card gets back, I'll put that out there, see what we got. Till next time, this has been Hockey Night in Belmont.